I was 28, stuck in a life that felt like it had abandoned me entirely. My 6-hour shifts at a retail store paid $15 an hour, barely enough to cover my rent of $670 a month groceries, limited to instant noodles, canned beans, cheap vegetables. Social life, non-existent. Friends were memories. The closest I had to companionship was my ex-girlfriend, who had left months ago, bluntly stating that she saw no future with a man living paycheck to paycheck, devoid of ambition or stability. I understood her logic. Even if it hurt, I hated my life, yet I had to survive. And then I saw it, a small ad at the bottom of the classifieds, almost hidden in the corner of the page, apartment 3C. $350 per month, central location, quiet building. My hands trembled as I dialed the number. The landlord's voice was coarse, muttered, almost avoiding my questions. "You can move in tomorrow if you want. Follow the rules exactly," he said. There was a strange weight to his words, like he was trying to warn me without frightening me. That was all. The next day I arrived carrying the few possessions I could manage. The building was unremarkable from the outside. Brick walls, peeling paint, and a faint smell of mildew. But inside, the hallway seemed alive. Dim fluorescent lights flickered above, casting uneasy shadows along the threadbare carpet. The landlord met me at the door. He didn't meet my eyes, blinked rapidly, and trembled slightly as he slid the door open. He didn't step in, only gestured for me to enter. He pressed a key into my hand and shoved a crumpled, scuffed piece of paper toward me. "Follow these rules exactly," he said. "Do not ask neighbors for explanations. There's a reason for each one. Misstep even once. The consequences are real, but you will be safe if you respect them." Before I could even respond, he turned and disappeared down the staircase, leaving me alone with the key, the paper, and an apartment that already felt alive. I unfolded the paper and read the 6 rules, scribbled in jagged handwriting. 1. Never rearrange the furniture or decor unless following the order outlined in the landlord's manual. 2. Never answer the door after 11:55 p.m. 3. Never bring anyone into the apartment after sunset. 4. Never question neighbors about this building or its occupants. 5. Keep all lights on in the apartment at least until midnight. 6. Never look at your reflection after 1:13 a.m. Some were mundane, others were bizarre. The last one, the reflection, made my skin prickle immediately. The first 2 days, I cautiously explored the apartment. It was small but functional. Cracked tiles, narrow kitchen, modest window overlooking the street. But the hallway was unsettling. I noticed neighbors peeking nervously from doorways. An older woman gave me a strange, pleading look, lips trembling as if to warn me. But she didn't. A man across the hall muttered something under his breath, froze, and looked away. Something unspoken hung in the air. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it was nothing. I had bigger worries than haunted neighbors. Then came the first rule-breaking incident. One afternoon, as I cooked dinner, one of the chairs was bothering me. It was always slightly in the way, nudging against the cabinet whenever I shifted around the kitchen. Almost instinctively, I moved it closer to the wall, not thinking much of it. At first, nothing happened. I continued chopping vegetables, humming quietly, trying to settle into my new life. Minutes passed, then a faint, horrifying sound. A woman's cries, soft at first, pleading in agony. The sound grew louder, sharper, more desperate. The air thickened around me, as if solid, pressing against my skin. Something moved past me, unseen but insistent, as if attempting to pin me down to the floor. I froze, heart pounding, sweat beading my forehead. My instincts screamed that I had angered something that did not want to be disturbed. I turned toward the chair, realizing with dawning horror that I had broken Rule 1. My hands shook as I moved the chair back into its original place, following the manual's exact instructions. The air lightened immediately. The shrieking cries ceased, leaving only the faint hum of the building settling around me. My entire body trembled. That was my first lesson. These rules were not suggestions. They were life and death. Over the next 4 months, life became a rhythm. Following the rules became second nature, instinctive. I never brought anyone home after sunset, mostly because I had no friends or family, but also because it was ingrained now. I never answered the door after 11:55 p.m., though it was rarely necessary. I never moved any furniture, never asked my neighbors anything, only smiled when passing them, enjoying the subtle awe in their eyes as if surviving here was a feat. I never looked at my reflection after 1:13 a.m., usually asleep by midnight. Lights turned off as per Rule 5. The building's odd sounds persisted. The groans above, distant whispers, but they were manageable. I saved enough from my shifts to buy a beat-up van for commuting, kept my groceries stocked, and even found small comforts in routine. Life, strangely, felt almost normal. Then Ella came. Hazel eyes, soft brown hair, a smile that made even the harshest days feel lighter. She worked at the flower shop near my store. At first, our interaction was innocent. Coffee runs, brief chats, lifting home after shifts. Her presence seeped into my world, softening edges I had long hardened. We laughed, shared small stories, and gradually I began to feel alive again. After 3 weeks of us officially dating, there was this day when we spent our whole day at a local theme park and laughed all the way to my apartment. Almost subconsciously, I invited her to my apartment for a cup of coffee. It was 6:40 p.m. I did not warn her about the rules. How could I? No one outside this building would believe me. To be honest, I actually had forgotten about the rules for a brief moment, especially Rule 3. Never bring anyone to your apartment after sunset. It was only when I unlocked the door and Ella remarked in her mockingly innocent way, "Someone must have been in a hurry this morning to leave all the lights on before leaving," that I realized the gravity of my oversight. I was shook to reality about the rules. I just broke one. My face turned pale. I forced calm. I couldn't just tell Ella to leave now. For the first 5 to 10 minutes, I braced for something sinister to happen, planning to rush her out if it did. But nothing happened. The apartment remained quiet. Ella laughed at my old yearbook photos, teasing me about my buzz-cut hair. That 1 cup coffee turned into our first sleepover. We cooked dinner together, chatted, laughed, and shared stories. By 11 p.m., we had eaten, cleaned up, and sat on the couch, basking in normalcy. My relief was immense. I even found myself dreaming of a future, a family with Ella, a countryside house, gardens filled with her favorite flowers. And then it happened. Here's one thing I didn't mention earlier. The knocks on the door after 11:55 p.m. were very rare and followed no specific pattern. In fact, they had only come twice in the last 5 months that I had lived here. And both times the knock was so soft, so unsure of itself, that ignoring it came naturally. It was never persistent, never demanding. It had no fixed schedule, no rhythm that could warn me or remind me, which is exactly why, and God, this haunts me, I had no reason to warn Ella. That night she had already freshened up, ready to crawl into bed. Her hair smelled like lavender and warm rain. I remember that stupid normal detail because it makes everything worse. I excused myself and stepped into the shower, my mind blank, my body loosened due to the sudden relaxation because of Ella's warm presence. Every rule in that apartment pushed so far into routine that they no longer even registered as rules I forgot. I forgot to warn her. I didn't even hear the knock. The water drowned everything out. But the scream, I heard that. It sliced right through the running water, through my skin, through my bones. It was the kind of scream someone makes when the Grim Reaper isn't just approaching, but is already standing in front of them. I turned the shower off mid-soap, dripping everywhere, slipping on the tiles as the realization hit me like a blow to the head. I had committed the unforgivable, the one mistake there was no mercy for. I ran out, water pooling behind me and into the hallway. Ella was gone. No trace, no shadow. The front door stood wide open like a gaping wound. She must have answered it. She must have heard the knock. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. My stomach dropped so fast I almost collapsed. The apartment spun. My world shattered all at once. I screamed her name until my throat tore. I ran up and down the entire building, barefoot, dripping, shivering, pounding on neighbors' doors, begging for help, begging for answers. No one opened their doors. Not one. Her last scream kept replaying in my skull, echoing like it was trapped there. I sat on the floor outside 3C for hours, still in my soaked bathrobe, hair tangled, eyes burning. I cried until my lungs hurt. I felt like someone had taken a knife and carved it straight through my heart and kept twisting. Morning finally came. Pale and merciless obsession took over. I tried again, pounding on doors, shouting, begging. I didn't care if I looked deranged. Some neighbors peeked through cracks, some whispered behind doors, but none dared speak. Their fear was a living thing. I could feel it in the walls. I stumbled back into my apartment eventually, delirious, trembling. I sat on the couch, dripping dried tears, completely hollow. How does a person just vanish? How does the world keep spinning? Nothing made sense anymore. Then a soft, sliding sound. A note appeared under my door. The handwriting was shaky, but comprehensible. It was from my elderly neighbor from next door. I flung my door open, but she must have already fled. I read it. It explained the unspoken. During the late 1980s, a single mother lived in my apartment, 3C, with her daughter. The landlord back then lived above, in 4C. He became obsessed with the woman in 3C. She rejected him multiple times, so he, as a revenge, took her daughter, locked her in his apartment. The mother called the cops on him. He was arrested. But corruption was thick back then, especially against a woman living alone. The landlord posted bail, walked free, and came right back, bitter, enraged. He arranged a voodoo ritual targeting the woman and her daughter. He kidnapped the girl again, used her as a sacrifice. The mother broke, slowly, horribly, until she died from the torment. The landlord died mysteriously soon after heart attack, they claim. No investigation. The ownership of the building passed to his nephew, the current landlord, Nick. Nick is a man who had lost everything to gambling and drinking, a man desperate to hold on to this apartment building, even if it meant turning it into a mausoleum with rent. Ever since the ritual and the 3 deaths, apartment 4C remained locked, and every tenant of 3C suffered. The rules weren't superstition. They were survival notes, pieced together across tenants, the ones who escaped early and the ones who didn't escape at all. The landlord collected all the rules after the last tenant fled. He enforced silence among the remaining residents with threats of eviction. We were all homeless once, the note said. We all lived on scraps, disability checks, elderly stipends, barely enough to live, let alone rent. The landlord promised low rent if everyone kept quiet, if we never warned newcomers, if we let 3C stay occupied. We cannot afford to be homeless again, so we stayed quiet, she wrote, at least till now. But last night, when Ella vanished, it was too much. The neighbor had packed and left. She refused to let silence kill another soul. Her final line, leave before the apartment claims your soul next. Leave. I didn't waste a second. I hired a private investigator. Together, we dug up old police reports, archived newspapers, public records. We knocked on neighbors' doors, and this time when they realized the silence was broken, they finally spoke. They confessed everything, the threats, the strange occurrences, the disappearances. We gathered testimonies. We presented evidence. We went to the authorities. The landlord was arrested, charged with withholding critical information, violating tenant rights, blackmail, complicity in ritualistic murder, and concealing multiple deaths. I left the building without looking back. Moved somewhere safer. Started over. Life became mundane again. Safe. Quiet. A strange kind of mercy. I took up gardening. Small shoots breaking through the soil. A tribute to Ella. To the softness she brought into my cursed life. To the light that the darkness tried and failed to drown completely. Remember, some things in this world are traps with a welcome mat, and if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.